Deep in the Australian outback, we found some images that appear to be so unusual, some people question if they are from our world at all. Instead, could they be ancient alien astronauts? In the Kimberley region of Western Australia, the Aboriginal people left intriguing paintings on cave walls. They are called the Wandjina, incredible beings Aboriginals said created the world. Take a closer look. Do you see the round heads and circular eyes? According to George Haas, founder of the Cydonia Institute, the Wandjina could be out-of-this-world evidence.
They have radiating feathers that come off the head. Some believe that when you first look at these, they scream alien. And the absence of mouths suggests that possibly these extraterrestrials were telepathic.
Wait a minute. Did he say aliens? It's an intriguing theory. What we do know is that Australian Aboriginal culture goes back 65,000 years and holds that humans were created by the Wandjina. These unique paintings are a record of that period, which they call Dreamtime.
You don't see these type of images in other cave paintings done by Neanderthals and early man, which mostly deal with hunting and animals, deer, bison. But these paintings that we're seeing in Australia are totally unique.
In some tales, the Wandjina are referred to as sky beings or spirits from the clouds who came down from the Milky Way and created the Earth and its people.
Some believe that these portraits of the Wandjina certainly blur the line between extraterrestrial and spiritual world. They seem to have aspects of both.
When it comes to our origins, some speculate that ancient extraterrestrial visitors engineered the creation of modern humans through DNA manipulation or some other means. The paintings are intriguing. Look closely at the lines going across, creating sections on the body, here and here. Could this be the pattern of an ancient spacesuit? We asked our experts. We begin with anthropologist Kathy Strain, who notes that if the paintings are an elaborate hoax, someone must have thought of it over a century ago.
They were documented by anthropologists more than 100 years ago. And outside the fact that you're adding some paint to keep the color alive, they haven't changed. These are not a hoax.
So if the pictures are real, are they of aliens? We ask archaeologist Ed Barnhart.
There are people who envision that it's helmets on their heads and suits on their bodies, but this is a very plodding-looking helmet. The kind of helmet that you see in 1950s aliens movies. It's kind of ridiculous to believe that an advanced civilization came here in suits that, in our current technology, are archaic.
And the idea that these designs on the bodies are spacesuits?
You're gonna see an image like this and envision suits on their bodies, but we do see today in Aboriginal ceremonies, people typically paint their bodies completely white, their faces, their hair, and then they'll put some kind of decoration over that. So I think that it is clearly connected to Aboriginal people who today paint their bodies in a very similar fashion.
In fact, Kathy Strain sees a clue in one image that convinces her these are strictly human bodies.
It is pretty rare to see genitalia of a male in rock art, and based on things that witnesses say that space aliens don't have genitalia, that's not how they reproduce, these look like human genitalia.
So what are we seeing?
The halo around the head, I don't believe that they intended it to be interpreted as anything other than it's the process of transforming, and that's your head kind of extending and above itself and continuing to carry out.
The halo has been used in many different cultures throughout history to represent spiritual transformation, including the Aboriginal Australians.
These images around the heads are some kind of symbol of the expansion of their minds and spirits.
So our verdict, these were likely humans. In fairness, you do have to ask, do the Aboriginal traditions of body decoration stem from a time when strange beings were observed? It's impossible to completely discount, but if these particular paintings were aliens, well, then let's just say they were endowed in a human way. It's March 2018 in Longyou, China, about 200 miles southwest of Shanghai. Researcher Andrew Kuznetsov is visiting the area to see what some call the ninth wonder of the ancient world. His footage reveals a gigantic cavern with huge pillars supporting a 60 to 100 foot high sloped ceiling. The walls are covered in a series of parallel chiseled lines and symbols, including stone carvings of animals.
As soon as I first saw these caves, I thought that they were made by modern machinery. I was overwhelmed because of the giant volume of extracted material. The main mystery of these caves is why they were built, because there is no signs of using them by humans.
Journalist Aaron McCarthy says the caves were only recently discovered in 1992 when 4 farmers were trying to drain what legend said was a bottomless lake gifted from the gods.
When they drained the first pond, they discovered a huge cavern. They ended up draining a bunch more ponds, and in all, they discovered 24 caverns. But the average size of the caverns is 11,000 square feet, which is 7 times bigger than the average American house.
Archaeologists believe these underground grottos were carved by hand more than 2,000 years ago during the Han Dynasty. And what's even more remarkable is that the walls and columns supporting the caves are relatively thin, yet they have remained intact for millennia despite seismic activity in the area. Still, though this is considered a wonder of the world, unlike the pyramids and the Colosseum, there's no universally accepted idea of what it was used for, which is rather bizarre.
Some have speculated that perhaps this is some kind of underground palace or a tomb for an emperor. The first emperor of China was buried with 8,000 terracotta soldiers. Another theory is that this was always meant to be a reservoir.
Whatever its purpose, the network of caves is so massive and detailed that it seems it would be nearly impossible to construct with only the hand tools available back in ancient China.
Experts have estimated that it would have taken 1,000 people working 24 hours a day for 6 years to carve out all of these caverns. Workers would have had to remove nearly 1 million cubic meters of rock.
Some questions that add to the mystery. If workers excavated all that rock, then where did it go? And why were no tools found in or near the caverns? There's also no mention of the caves in any written records, so no one even knew they existed until 30 years ago. Let's see what our experts can unearth. Archaeologist Dr. Ed Barnhart considers whether this cave system could be an ancient palace.
The palace has a number of different functions and individual rooms for privacy. The kind of individual spaces that a palace needs to function are not indicated in these caverns.
Then since they're so elaborate, could they have been burial chambers like with the emperor's terracotta warriors? Anthropologist Kathy Strain thinks it's unlikely.
They have to continually pump this because water keeps getting in it from natural sources. I would not assume that someone would want to bury somebody in a constructed cave that continually filled with water.
Others have wondered if the caves were used by miners to extract some valuable mineral, but no trace of mining equipment has ever been found. And since these spaces seem to fill naturally with water, Strain suggests they could have been originally created as reservoirs.
They were precisely built so that water coming down from rain or a monsoon would get captured into these caverns and then it'd be used by the local people for a water source. It's like a big gutter, and it's all focused to go into the caverns.
Yet Barnhart isn't so sure.
If these were reservoirs, why would they bother carving the walls in these nice linear formations?
Barnhart thinks there might be another explanation for why water was welcomed in this space.
The very few objects that we have found in these caverns are from the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty was famous for its silk technology. The weaving of silk is best done in a very humid environment, with those parallel lines that are really kind of overhangs, each one of them, creating places where the condensation would rise the humidity within this environment.
For 6 weeks after they hatch, silkworms eat mulberry leaves and then start spinning their silk cocoons. Scientists have found around 75% humidity is ideal for silkworm growth. It helps keep the leaves from withering. Once the cocoons are ready, they are boiled to soften them into threads. The threads are dyed, spun, and woven into fabric, with humid air keeping the natural fibers more pliable. Our verdict? The true purpose behind these mysterious caves remains unknown. Barnhart's theory about them being used for silk making is intriguing, but there's no smoking gun. Archaeologists haven't found any artifacts like looms, silkworm cocoons, or minerals for dyes in or near the caves. It's July 2014 in the Indian state of Chhattisgarh, where there are a number of caves and paintings made by hunter-gatherer populations going back as far as 10,000 years. Archaeologist J.R. Bagad claims he recently made a unique discovery here.
और ये शैल चित्र में जो है लगभग 10,000 वर्ष पुराने आदि मानवों के द्वारा निर्मित में शैल चित्र है.
While giving a tour to reporters, Bagad shows a rock face on which there are half a dozen dark red and yellow painted beings standing together in a group.
In this particular painting, which looks quite strange, we have some individuals with larger heads, different colored arms and hands, and they don't look like the other people depicted on these cave walls. So we have a lot of people believing that the ancient humans who painted these drawings were actually painting images of aliens from another world.
The theory that these are depictions of extraterrestrials is bolstered by another painting of what appears to be a mechanical-looking disc painted on the cave ceiling.
It resembles a saucer-shaped object, which became kind of the pop cultural representation of UFOs in the 1950s and 60s.
These aren't the only ancient representations of allegedly extraterrestrial beings.
We also have a number of other ancient civilizations who have created similar things. For instance, we have the Wandjina figures in a rock shelter in Australia. We also have petroglyphs in Capitol Reef State Park here in the United States.
Let's take another look at this disc-shaped object from India. These three lines, right here, again right here, and right here, have alternately been described as beams or legs of a tripod, and these apparent portholes, right here and right here, match with contemporary representations of alien spacecraft. So what can our experts unearth about this peculiar cave art? First, anthropologist Kathy Strange says these ancient drawings must have marked a significant event or encounter.
They're not just doodles. Cave walls are very valuable. So for them to paint this, it must have been something important to them as a people. They're trying to represent something that they want to pass on to the next generation.
These bulbous-headed figures do indeed resemble the humanoid depictions of aliens that eventually dominated in the 20th century. So a connection seems possible. However, archaeologist Ed Barnhart believes they are documentation of a different kind of cosmic trip.
These ancient cultures relied upon people called shamans who would typically go into altered states of consciousness to receive information, and those were induced by hallucinogenic drugs or starvation or sleep deprivation. What they painted on the walls were their experiences they were having during their hallucinogenic trances. In those caves, they would feel like they're floating outside of their body, and they would show themselves elongated and the floor falling out below them.
It's not that the figures' heads were extra large, but that the bodies were stretched as they felt they were floating up. And as for the UFO-like object, that's also more likely something else from the heavens.
Instead of it being a beam from an alien ship, it actually is just sun rays, and they're projecting that the sun is at its full potential, probably noon, right above your head. There's other examples in the general area in India and other places in the world that show a very similar object.
Our verdict? These well-preserved Indian rock paintings are most likely the work of shamans from prehistoric hunter-gatherer societies who made them while in an altered state of consciousness. Even if these ancient artists weren't seeing aliens, they were definitely experiencing something truly out of this world. Cambodia, the early 2000s. Deep in the country's northern jungles, the 12th century Prohm temple has undergone a series of renovations when the internet starts to buzz because of this.
We have all of these carvings of very conventional animals, and then we have what looks like a Stegosaurus.
Zoom in, and it sure looks like a dinosaur.
It seems to have the tail, the spikes running along the back, And it raised a lot of questions. How do we get a dinosaur present on this temple when these dinosaurs went extinct at the beginning of the Cretaceous?
That is, unless you believe in a different history of the Earth.
There's a subset of creationists called young earthers, and they believe that God created the earth 10,000 years ago, and they take this sculpture as proof that humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time. And not just that they lived at the same time, but that we even domesticated dinosaurs.
Fun fact, the word dinosaur and the whole field of paleontology didn't evolve until the 1840s. Before that, scientists struggled to find other explanations for gigantic fossilized bones. Some were even thought to be the remains of ancient giants. But what will this case reveal? Let's ask our experts. First, is this carving even legit?
Some people have suggested someone made a new carving that looked like a Stegosaurus as a hoax. But the column it's on, you can see the depth of the carving is the same in each one of them. So if someone was going to take a carving out and put a new carving in there, it would have been deeper in the wall.
So if this is no hoax, then what else could it be? Wildlife biologist Stephanie Shuttler has an idea.
My guess is that it's a rhinoceros. People, when they think about rhinoceroses, they think about the horn, obviously, and this carving doesn't seem to have the horn, but the Javan rhinoceros, the females actually don't have horns. So that's what I think is going on here.
But that still doesn't explain those quintessential Stegosaurus plates. Barnhart says the outer ring of the carving holds the key clue.
Look at these things around here. These are floral designs. The Khmer loved to make very busy pieces of art like this. So when there was negative space, they put leaves in there to balance it out. That's what these are. These are leaves.
Barnhart agrees that the motif depicts a living animal. He just doesn't see a rhino.
I have been to that temple, and right there, not 100 yards from that temple, are grazing water buffalo today. And those water buffalo have the same kind of horns. They look exactly like the animal in that depiction. The chances that that image is a Stegosaurus is 0. The chances that it was an artist who might have been fired after making that column, I'd give that a 50-50.
So, our verdict? This is a real centuries-old carving, merely depicting a water buffalo with palm fronds in the background. So far, there is no proof out there that our ancestors once kept pet dinosaurs a la Fred Flintstone.